Okay. Hi, I'm Jill.
Hi, I'm Farah.
Okay, what were you saying?
I was saying you were like, how are we going to talk about this?" And I was like, "We're not going to plan it because you have a really clear vision of how to talk about this, and I think you should. I mean, we both have experience. We're going to talk about mental health. We both have some experience with our own kids and mental health, and also like with clients and mental health, and in the classroom with students with mental health issues, and I think you have a really good narrative about how to talk about that. So I think you should just do it. Take it away.
Um, so I was just thinking, I told you I wanted to do this because it's August and a lot of teens are getting ready to go to college for the first time, or maybe to go back to college. It's a really big moment in a lot of kids' lives. It's a big moment in a lot of parents' lives, right? And you get so excited and you're looking forward to the future. And the teen wants to get into their dorm if they're going to a dorm, whatever, and you get them shipped off. And it's just a big moment. And I think sometimes it takes so much energy to get to this point, especially as a homeschool family.
Yeah.
And you sometimes think you're done with the whole parenting and everything's going to be great. And now their life's all planned out. They got into a great college and they're going to go for this major and everything's going to be wonderful. And I just wanted to get a little message out there. And it doesn't have to be a long video or anything, just about mental health and young adults. Because first of all, we know college students struggle with this. It's a huge area of struggle. We know that a lot of colleges are dealing with suicides on campuses.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's happening across the country at every kind of college, from small to big to, and
Hmm.
everything in between.
Yeah. There's nowhere that's
We
immune to it. Yeah.
know, and we know colleges are overwhelmed with mental health and the resources that they really need. That's it. But I think, parents can play a role in this, in just being aware that a lot of mental health issues, and, I speak from experience, can crop up in adulthood, in young adulthood, that weren't there before, or they can get worse. That you may have noticed something a little bit during their teenage years and young, 20, they hit 20 and it just gets a lot worse. So I just think families should be aware of it.
I think, I think there's a tendency at every stage, for an issue to sort of think, okay, we have overcome that. Okay, we dealt with that.
Yeah.
But then if there is an underlying mental health issue, or same thing with learning disabilities too, sometimes each stage needs different things, and there's different, there's brain growth. I mean, kids brain growth doesn't stop until their mid 20s,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so they're continuing to grow and change. And so I think there's this tendency also. I mean, I think probably a lot of families saw this with like, okay, my little kid struggled with some anxiety or something, and we resolved it. We saw a therapist, we got some help, we put in some blah blah blah, and then they get to puberty and suddenly their 16-year-old, it's like zoom ramped back up. Well, then
Right.
again, you kind of deal with it and you think again, like, hey, it's done,
Hey,
we did this, like, but it
we
can come
solved
up
this
again.
issue.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. But like it's not, it can be like, it's not, we're not,
Yeah.
we don't know like what the progress will be, but I think it's,
No,
yeah, I think that you've got a really good point there. That it can crop up again. So what should
it
people
can
do?
crop up again. Well, and also I just want to add to that, there are some mental health conditions that just don't even show up until, like the 20s. Like
Uh-huh.
sometimes it just comes out of nowhere, it seems like.
Hmm.
And so just be aware of that. What should families do? That's a really good question. First of all, I just want to say that, a lot of families struggle with mental health issues.
Yeah.
It's not anything that anyone needs to be embarrassed of or think it's just them and no one else. There's tons and tons of families struggling with this. I think there's a lot to do. You talk first. What do you think?
I mean, I think that some of it is just an awareness, like, like what we're talking about, that, you're not, your role shifts in this stage, but it's not done. And that just legally, there are some things that you
Mm-hmm.
need to know and do. And I think that, it's a good reason to look at, the sort of power of attorney stuff, and and so forth. And there are a couple different services that sell, ways to sign off on that, and also to get a FERPA release for your kid so
Yeah.
that the school can talk to you. Especially if you've got a student a young adult who is potentially at risk, either genetics or, because of a previous history with mental health challenges, then, you should do those things. You want to do those things in order to head that off so that it can talk to someone, because they're 18 and legally you have no rights. And so
Yeah.
you want to set that up. So I think that's the first really obvious thing. And really, most of it, I mean, like, I had my kids sign their FERPA things so that I can talk to the school. It just, you want to do that for most students, whether you think there's going to be an issue or not.
Yeah. You just want to plan ahead for that.
Mhm.
Um, I remember when my oldest son started at Hamilton, they had unfortunately just had a suicide the year before. So it was something that was being talked about everywhere. And that family, the student did not sign any sort of FERPA release. And the professors were very frustrated. They knew there was an issue and they were not allowed to contact the family at all. And there was an article released after that about how, as particularly one person was just so frustrated because just knew that something was going on. And so I remember right from the get go, I had my oldest, sign that on. And my daughter started community college, so she didn't need to sign it really because she was living at home. But my oldest son, the second he went away, it's really important, I think, having the discussion with your teens before they go, like, hey, mental health issues can sometimes crop up or get worse when you're in this whole new environment. That's okay. I'm here, for you to talk to me. There's also counseling centers at every university, pretty much.
Mhm.
If you feel we need to set something up for you, I can help if you need that help. And I think you want to give them freedom. So you don't want to be, or I don't know, it depends on family to family, but I didn't want to be the type of parent who's always calling my kid and keeping tabs on them and kind
Yeah,
of taken away from their freedom.
same.
But reverse, I always wanted to be the parent that picked up the phone and was there as much as possible if they needed to call me. And so I try to make an effort there. So freedom one way, availability the way back.
I really like that framing. In terms of, like, school resources, know what they are yourself ahead of time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
just so that when your kid, if they start to struggle, you can say, "Hey, it's in this building." It's all
Yeah.
you do is go there. Like, it can be that simple. And tell them where it is, so they don't even have to tell you necessarily. Like, they can go in,
Yeah.
because those services are there on every campus. They've got
Yeah.
something. And
Yeah.
it's better on some campuses than others. It's a reason that in the lead up in your research about a school, you may want to pay attention to that question if you know that there has been issues previously prior, and your student's going to use those services. I try to ask about this when I'm on campuses,
Yeah. Always.
to get a
Yeah.
feel. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of schools now, because they are so overwhelmed, are doing virtual counseling, and usually they'll tell you how many sessions a student can access each year.
Yeah.
And having that information, for the student, just like, here it is, you can do it virtually, you can talk to someone, and this is all you have to do, I think is really helpful. Um, yeah, it's tricky because some kids don't even want to talk about it. I think if your kid's on meds or something, make sure that they know how, there's a plan for refilling their medication, whether it be in person or you just get them out of state or whatever you have to do, make sure they have access to meds. I think if they're struggling with mental health issues, waiting an extra year is never a bad thing. College is always there.
Hmm.
Sometimes kids just need an extra year to work on certain things or a gap year. Yeah, I think that's worth it.
Hmm.
Um, I think it would be hard on parents, though. I wanted to talk about that too.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. If you have a student who's struggling with mental health issues or a teen or young adult, and you're trying to support them, and it can be very hard because of all the emotions and everything. I think having your own support group is really important. And we talked about this before when we were talking about doing this talk. And I said I liked having you to talk to. You actually supported me a lot through some stuff, and it was really helpful.
But you do the same for me.
Oh
I mean, I think it's good to
yeah,
have, it's, I think it's the same thing to me. A lot of it is the same thing as, when you were homeschooling, sort of kindergarten, first grade and all this, and you don't know necessarily what's normal. Like for like,
Yeah.
is it normal that my kid is like eating his burgers? Is it normal that my kid can't write his name yet? Like, is it normal that he can read Harry Potter at this stage? Like, you just don't have a sense. That's why you talk to the other homeschool moms and you're sort of like, oh, okay, my kid is he's a little behind all the other kids, or like he's a
Yeah.
little ahead of all the other kids in certain ways.
Yeah.
Like, you need someone to bounce, parenting things off of. And then also like, how do I deal with this? Like, whatever it
Hmm.
is. And I think it's the same thing at this stage, but I think that there's no more like park day where you just see everyone and you just like spill what's happening. Like, and like, how are we going to deal with this? Like, you have to kind of seek out those relationships a little bit more, but you still
Yeah.
need it because launching young adults is not like an overnight process. And like,
Yeah.
it's all, I mean, even kids who don't have mental health challenges per se will do boneheaded things, and you will be frustrated and it will be fraught in some way. Like, and you'll try to figure out your boundaries, and they may be slightly different than other people's boundaries, but like, you do need like a sounding board sometimes, and sometimes
Yeah.
outside of like your partner if you have one. Like, so yeah.
Yeah. I think also just be aware of your own mental health
Mhm.
and try to be a good role model to your young adults, like, hey, I'm struggling myself, so I need to do A, B, and C, whatever it is, because I need to put my mental health first. And you should put your mental health first because it's so important, whatever we need to do. Last thing I'd say is be aware that, students can take a leave of absence from schools and then just come right back, if they need to. There's usually a
Yeah.
policy in place. You have to, of course, request it and everything, but it is there.
Yeah. Well, and the same advice. I mean, if you anticipate, that there may be struggles too, like, maybe you should keep an eye on when those drop dates are and the W dates and the withdrawal dates,
Yeah.
so that and can check in the week before that they occur. You don't even have to be heavy-handed about it, but you can just be like, hey, how's it going? How are the
Yeah.
grades in this class and that class? And
The
just
drop
to
date's around
know.
the corner. So I'm
I
just
know
checking in.
exactly. But it's good to do that. I mean, I think, just that
Yeah.
it's just, especially at first, but as you're pointing out, you can get blindsided. Like, I mean, there's no way to warn you, hey, you're about to be blindsided. Like, it doesn't work quite that way, but like,
Yeah.
that sometimes issues crop up. Don't feel ashamed, I think is, one of the big
Yeah.
things.
Definitely don't feel shame.
Yeah.
Yeah. It happens, and for whatever reason, I think, COVID happened and just social media and isolation of modern society, whatever. It seems that a lot of people are in mental health crises these days, and a lot, not just young people, different age groups and different, people. Um, so just be aware, find help when you need it, check in with your kids, and just maybe have a discussion before they go off.
Yeah. I think that's all really good advice.
Okay. All right. This was a short one,
Yeah.
but an important one. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Okay.